I?
Yeah.
Hi. Can I steal back that time from you and just use it for
It's 2 minutes.
Let me steal back that time from use it for the presentation. What I have to say.
Go ahead.
No, it's 2 minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, it's 2 minutes. It's important.
Okay. Good.
For the West African sub-region and a leading voice in knowledge economy, we will be advocating to the youth and not so young on how to leverage their knowledge and make Imo State a knowledge center that serves global world, just like Bangalore in India. Please go ahead, Mr. Chinenye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me just stand on existing protocols and just dive straight in. There've been awesome presentations today and a lot of content. Because of the shortness of time, I have a slide deck that's about 20 or 30 slides. I'm not sure which one. At about 4 a.m., you lose track of how many slides you've created. But I just want to make a few points just at the very beginning. One of them would be that in 2019, about $660 million of foreign direct investment came into the technology sector in Nigeria. And of that money, $663 million, 95% of it ended in Lagos. And there's got to be reason why it ended up in Lagos and didn't go beyond that. Last week as well, Google announced a 6-month certification program that's the equivalent of a university degree. And the requirements to enter that program are exactly 0. You don't need to have WIEC, you don't need to have a university degree, you don't need to have any degree, you just need to be able to walk through the program. And in 6 months, you get a certification that's the equivalent of a 4-year university degree. People who graduate from that program will be data scientists. And a data scientist has about a starting income between $30,000 and $50,000 a year. At $50,000, that's approximately 28 million naira in income. What is required to create this kind of environment that allows this level of growth, explosive growth, actually to occur? Some people talk about universities, but in Nigeria today, there are about 162 universities or so. And the total population enrollment is about 1.7 million. That's less than 1% of our population. At 500,000 to 700,000 admissions a year in Nigerian tertiary institutions, is this really the place for us to look? And this is why I found the presentation by both on tourism, by Dr. Ngoka and by Dr. Mwapa on the skill centers absolutely important. And this will be the pivots that I'm going to focus on. Interestingly, Harvard University last month said that by the year 2030, only 10% of the universities in America will survive. That's 50 or 60. All the other universities are going to close because they will no longer be relevant as universities and presently constituted in the 21st century. How much more in Nigeria? We have a situation in Imo, as is the situation across Nigeria, and it's about the youth bulge, and I'll delve into some of that. Our problem, or what we consider to be our problem, those 3 million people who should be in employment in the state and who should be productive in the state, that we consider to be a problem today are actually the solution. Our challenge is how do we transform those 2 million people into productive individuals and create human capital that will drive the 21st century. And that's the focus of my presentation. I'll run very quickly through it to try to make the point as we go along that this COVID thing that has frightened everyone has actually given us an opportunity to have a reset. Arundhati Roy says the pandemic is a portal. And what does she mean by that? I think the critical thing to take out of what she's saying is that every pandemic changes the world. And this is the first one that has come in 100 years of this scale and this magnitude. And every time when the world has faced a pandemic, there's been a fundamental disruption and things do not go back to normal. But increasingly across Nigeria and across considerations that we're seeing from governments, from individuals, from organizations, there's a race to return to normality. But that normality is something that we should avoid. We should be bold and courageous in addressing the future. I'm going to quickly run through the slides just to get to the point where we can have a discussion. I think it's very important for us to understand that in Nigeria, about 50% of our population is poor. And this spreads across most of the country, rather a bit evenly. And that means that with a population of 200 million, projected to grow to 350 million by the year 2030, if we don't change the poverty index, fundamentally by disrupting the way that people become productive in our environment, we're going to be facing a huge crisis. There will be so many poor people in the country that the rich and even those who are able to make a living will find noted at the level of the state. And I'll go into some detail around this. I think we need to kind of like understand what choices we have. And this slide will just sketch out in very brief detail what those things are. Essentially, we're going to face a situation post-pandemic where the economy is going to recession. The forecasts are between -4% to -8%. But the most critical number there is the number of people who will be unemployed, who are likely to be unemployed. And that figure, given the situation that we're at before, which is about 25% underemployment, million people into unemployment as a direct result of COVID. And that just swells that number of people who are not economically engaged, don't have disposable income, are unable to acquire or to pay for basic human services, and therefore are a threat to your system. In addition to that, you're going to have a challenge around the FX rates. I mean, when I did these slides, I was initially at 415 Naira, but yesterday, I think the dollar went to 470. What that means to the Naira, what that means essentially is that the system that we're going to be operating in the next 6 to 18 months is one of a huge economic squeeze. And we need to get answers for that. And as I said, our biggest problem is going to be around unemployment and what we're going to do to address that. Significantly, there are a few sectors that are likely to grow. As a consequence of the conditions in which we find ourselves, certainly food is going to be a critical issue. There will be growth in health and social services that is powered largely by donor funding, and chemicals and pharmaceuticals which support that. But there are other areas to watch, and those areas to watch, I think, are in the areas of ICT, education, and finance. And I'll explain a bit more as we go along, because this is where the opportunity really lies. And you will notice that that tourism is not called out here, but there are very important points here brought up by Dr. Ngoka's presentation that I'll touch on as we go forward. So how does all this affect the digital economy? I believe that we need to walk through this door, open this door, and just walk through it. We have to choose deliberately and intentionally not to wallow in the misery and the tragedy of COVID-19, but to understand in what ways has it fundamentally disrupted our environment and what do we do to swing that around. One of the most important things is where we currently are. That we're doing this by webinar is in itself a huge disruption. Prior to this, we all would have gathered in a way. So what has happened is that all of us who are now participating and not physically in a way have extracted income from the state government, because this is money that we could have spent in hotels, as Dr. Ngoka was pointing out, but now we're doing this virtually. What then is the future for MICE? What's the future for hospitality? What's the future for all kinds of industries that required an aggregation and congregation of people in one place in order to generate income? We believe that the move into the virtual and the physical and the digital world has a plus, but it does so at the expense in many cases of the analog, and we'll explore some of that. So back to the youth bulge. It's important to understand that in Imo State, this is the kind of like a demographic of how the demographic breaks out. You have between the ages of 15 and 64, you have about 59, almost 60% of the population. If you consider that the people in Nigeria today, currently, you get to JS3, the statistics from the Federal Ministry of Education in 1986 said that JS3 students, only 14% of the total number of JS3 students will advance into SS1. That means that 84% of the children in JS3 today in all of our schools will fall out of that track and have to fall into something. What will they fall into? And this is the critical age, that pivotal age of 13, 14, and in some cases 15. What did they fall into? The idea is that they should fall into a technical and vocational education system that captures them and equips them with skills that are certifiable skills that enable them to either become entrepreneurs or valuable employees. And just like what Dr. Wapa had pointed out, we have this massive bulge of young people who, if we do not do something constructive with them, will become automatically a problem to us. Imo State falls into, most of the cities in Imo State fall into the cluster of fragile cities, what we call fragile cities. There's a constant pull and push that creates a drain from the rural area into the urban areas. And as people move into the urban areas, if they don't have education, they don't have jobs, then they start to create the kind of insecurity that you find inside our cities. and you start to see these ungoverned spaces emerging, and large numbers of homeless and undocumented and idle and productive young people are gathered in urban centers, creating problems for the larger system. To solve this problem, we need to do precisely what Dr. Wampa has pointed out. We need to distribute and redistribute the way the economic foci so that we don't have people aggregating themselves in cities and becoming a problem and a burden onto the system. There are four pivotal things that will tip the scale. One is a massive investment in human capital. The second is technological readiness.
Sorry, can I interrupt you? You have a few more minutes left?
Yes, please.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to. Yes, I'm rounding up.
Thank you.
We have human capital. These are the four pivotal issues that we need to look at: human capital, technology readiness, which includes entrepreneurship and innovation, and then the finance that supports the evolution of new businesses, and of course the state's policy that drives that. And I'll quickly show you what this means. Here are the maps that show you the kind of connectivity in terms of technological readiness that we have in Nigeria. And you would see that on the left-hand side, there's huge bandwidth that's available along the coast of Africa. And then it comes into Nigeria and it needs to be taken up country through pipes and fiber. Without building a robust fiber network in the whole of Imo State, it becomes difficult for it to actually drive connectivity that pushes other things. And you can see from there that there is some density. With a small landmass, we can actually create incredible amounts of connectivity in that space and power the new economy. To do that, you can see here that we have to move large numbers of people into what we call the cloud economy. The informal and invisible economy needs to move in, educated and unemployed, and then the urban formal. The rural economy that you see the little bubble outside there becomes a challenge. If we don't find a way of moving them onto the same digital world, then essentially what we're doing is that we're creating a digital divide and more distancing. I want to come back to Lagos because it's absolutely important for us to understand this. There is a reason why Lagos accounts for 95% of FDI in the system and why it is seen as the hub for the new economy in Nigeria. We need to find a way to turn away into that, to turn Imo State into that. To do so, there are specific things that we have to do, and this is the most important. We need to find a way to create this nexus between science, technology, and industry, where you drive a lot of young people into these environments where they are constantly innovating and creating new things and creating new asset classes in terms of intellectual property, and they're innovating around the challenges that we have in our local environment. Without creating these clusters, we will be challenged to lead the economy, including, let me just like these last two slides. The knowledge-driven this dynamic you see to the right-hand side. We've got to have high-speed networks.
Hello, have we lost Chinenye?
I think we've lost him for a minute back there.
Yes.
While he's getting back together, could Ogo, Ipok, please get ready? We'll give Chinenye 2 minutes and see when he can come back to us.
Yeah, Chinenye, you're welcome.
I think I was caught short by the technology itself. So I think I was the energy questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I hope that when the questions do come up, we can expatiate.
Thank you very much, Chinenye.
Thank you very much, Emeka. I think I can stop there.